Hi, and welcome to part 3 of my devlog series where I talk about making a game about names. To recap, I've been working on this game for a few months now in my free time, and while development has been a bit slower than I would like, I still continue to make progress. A lot of the time has been spent working on various tools that could possibly be reused in other projects. In a previous video, I talked about my level editor, and now for this video I want to focus on another tool, a dialogue system. Dialogue is usually a big part of RPGs and adventure games. At a base level, it's pretty simple. When a player approaches an NPC and presses a button, show some text on the screen. Not too hard, but what if there's a lot of text? What if I want to play a little animation when they speak? What if I want them to actually turn and face the player when speaking? What if I want them to only sometimes do that? What if there's more than one character talking? What if they walk around in between lines? What if they talk and walk at the same time? What if the player has choices? What if there's yelling? I wanted a system that gave me the flexibility to do these kinds of things, but I also wanted it to be efficient enough to use so that it's not going to be a nightmare to write thousands of lines or to make edits to them later. I looked at some of the existing tools in Unity, and then I looked at how other game engines tend to solve this problem. There are a lot of ways to handle dialogue, and others may prefer other systems like visual editors, because those are common in a lot of the tools that I saw, but I realized that kind of workflow wasn't exactly what I wanted, and what I was personally looking for was something more similar to Ren'Py. Now, Ren'Py is designed for visual novels, so it doesn't quite translate to what I am making, but I really like the idea that the whole story is written almost like a screenplay. You define different actors at the top, and then it goes mostly top to bottom, line by line, where it says who is speaking and then what they say. Other directions, such as characters entering and exiting or changing poses, are embedded into the script as fairly readable commands. So I worked on building a system in Unity that works similarly. To keep things simple on the parsing side, the type of each line is determined by its starting character. Octothorpes designate comments and will be ignored by the parser. Colon means to change the speaker. Dollar signs are labels that the script could jump to later. And then a greater than sign is an action command. Hyphens are for changing settings on the dialogue, and anything else is a line spoken by the current speaker. Actual dialogue lines can have variables embedded into them, marked by curly braces. These variables can be set earlier in the script, in different scripts, or through different systems entirely outside the dialogue system. The most common use of this is displaying the character's name, which the player chooses at the start of the game. And brackets can mark special formatting, like highlighting certain words or making them yell. The part inside the bracket is the name of the style, and the part in parentheses is the text that style is applied to. I created a script file for each area, so the lab, church, shop, and dojo each get their own script. Some of these areas have multiple NPCs, but I could use labels to jump to the relevant parts of the script, and still have it in one file. And having the lines in the same file makes it much easier to create interactions between them. To interface it with the rest of the game's systems, it does require a bit of configuration. First, I add a dialogue system to the scene. Then I add a reference to all of its dependencies. It needs actors, which are characters in the scene that are allowed to speak or do actions. The player is automatically added as an actor whenever the player spawns. And optionally, to use certain commands, it may have prefabs that can be spawned in and out, and possibly added as new actors, and waypoints, which are locations that the actor or even the camera might move to. And finally, I set up the triggers. Some are simple trigger events, which trigger whenever the player walks into a certain area, and some are dialogue interaction triggers, which require the player to face a trigger and press a button. As for how the text is actually displayed, there's two main ways to go about this. Probably the most common way is to anchor the text somewhere, usually near the bottom of the screen. This is great because the text will always be visible and in the same place and easy to find, and there's space to add a portrait for some easier emoting. The other option is to have a floating text box. Aside from some narration, that's what I'm doing. This is because I want the text boxes to feel like they're actually part of the world. That's also why I'm using world space for text boxes instead of an overlay. That comes with its own host of problems, like text boxes sometimes being angled weird, or distant text being too small. So I'll have to play around with this a bit and see if it's actually worth it, or if I need to switch to an overlay. And that's it. So far the system seems to be working well, as I've been building many of the interactions in this first chapter. It's also been a good opportunity to flesh out the plans I have for the story. I'm still excited for this project, but it is a bit overwhelming for one person, so for now I'm focusing on just getting the first chapter ready, and then I'll go from there. Thanks for watching.